Welcome to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. I'm Andeea, a licensed addiction counselor, and along with my co-host, Laura Kissmann, a quantum nutritionist, we will be inviting expert scientists, clinicians, survivors, and thrivers to distill their pearls of wisdom attained from applying quantum biology to their fields of research and everyday lives. Our goal is to bring you easy to understand principles and practices about the study of light, water, and magnetism so you can take your health into your own hands. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. Today, I am doing solo. Laura is out today, but you have me, and we have a very special guest here today, Kelly Bento. Now, she is a biological hygienist, and she's also a graduate of the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, and she was actually in Laura's cohort, which was the first cohort. And yeah, you're also the founder and the CEO of Soleil Well. Laura, I know she has your panels. I have your torch and plan to get your panels. And yeah, your panels are sought off highly in the community, I know. But your Instagram handle is Quantum Mom. So let's start there. What is the story behind that?
Pretty funny story, actually. I was sort of texting back and forth with Chantal, Jack's nurse, because I was at one point, this was probably, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, planning on flying down to a 4th of July event at Jack's farm. And then as it turned out, I wasn't able to get the flights and to go. And it just hit me that I was the quantum mom. And I said that to her in a phone conversation, and we both burst out laughing, and I immediately went online and bought the domain. And this was before I ever, I didn't even put it on Instagram or anything like that. But I don't know, something I just sort of like went with it, and I was like, the quantum mom.
Well, Laura and I both, we love the name, and you certainly live up to that name. I know she told me that you're a big fan of Jack's, and you actually, well, this is just off what Laura told me, but you were following him long before many of us found him. And for those listening who don't know, that's Dr. Jack Cruz. But yeah, he, I think, is somebody that we've all learned from, right?
Yes. Yeah. Jack connects the dots, but I personally feel as though his real superpower is in connecting the people, because the people that I have met, Meredith and Jason and Corey Gesvini and so many, it's, the list is endless of the people that I've met through that, community, through his membership, and have maintained these really fantastic, loving and learning relationships. So
Yeah. Well, okay. So why don't we start the conversation with just, this is the first time we've talked about red light therapy or photobiomodulation on the podcast. So probably a lot of our listeners are newer to quantum biology. So let's talk about the environment and maybe just describe like the evolution of how humans have, like how we've modified our light over the past few hundred years, and just start there.
yeah, we're beings of light. I mean, we are here to absorb and assimilate light, the light from the sun. We're supposed to be outside naked all day, every day. And thankfully we're not. I mean, we're so blessed that we're not. Modern living is quite a luxury. And I wouldn't want to go back to that time, certainly, but we have to figure out how to live comfortably, but maintain our health in doing so. So, light it's vital. It's absolutely vital. I mean, it would take you longer to die from lack of light, but it certainly would be not an enjoyable existence without light. So it's just, it's my personal driver, obviously, in everything that I do, and in the way that I live my life, and in my business. It's just something that I am always focused on. And that's at the top of my health priority is my light environment, whether that be, natural sunlight or whether it be using an adjunct therapy like a red light panel, or also blocking the frequencies of light that we shouldn't be exposed to at night, which would be, any lighting at night we really shouldn't be exposed to, but certainly the blue frequencies. So, I like to say that, light heals or it steals. You decide. It's what are you exposing yourself to? What, when, and what does that look like? What effect is that having?
Yeah. This is a great segue into, in quantum biology, we have light, water, and magnetism. And you've focused on light specifically. Why did you choose light? Was there a story there?
So drawn to it. I mean, I found personally in my own health, managing my light environment had the greatest impact on my health. I've been fortunate enough to have learned this information while my kids were young. So I've been able to raise them in a healthy light environment. And I was just so drawn to the light aspect of it. And my brother, and I've said this on other podcasts, the real driver was me wanting to raise a healthy family, number one, but also my brother's brain injury and starting to understand that his brain needed light. He needed a lot of red light in particular in order to, keep him healthy. And I'm very happy to say that in studying light, through that crisis, I've also said, what brings you to this information? It's either curiosity or crisis. And I think, all of us sort of have some of each of that gets us into this quantum biology world. But, from my standpoint, it was more curiosity and raising a healthy family. And then we, added in my brother having a major health crisis. And it's been unbelievable what we have been able to accomplish with him. At the time of his injury, they gave him roughly a 3, maybe 4-year lifespan because of the severity of the injury.
Mhm.
And it's been over 12 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
so
light is a
cool.
gift. It's a gift, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to quote you. You've said light is the software that
Yes.
runs the hardware in the human body. Now, yeah, can you just give us a background, like what is red light therapy or photobiomodulation? We'll say that.
Okay, so it's the body absorbing light at specific frequencies and then taking that light, and it's absolutely amazing that the divine design of the human body is we are able to take photons, little packets of light, and convert that to usable energy within the body, which is ATP. I mean, it's phenomenal that we're able to do that. We're able to photosynthesize, just like a plant needs light, certain frequencies of light in order for it to thrive. Humans are the same. We know this from Arturo Herrera's research that humans photosynthesize.
Yeah.
So, the frequencies of light are really, really important. And it's so great that now we have, so many people have these great platforms that light has become a major conversation in the health world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm trying to get it to be a major conversation in the addiction world. So,
Yeah,
so yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions on like specific, mechanisms, but let's just talk really quick and make sure everyone understands, the typical wavelengths of red light therapy. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'd love for you to just go over maybe some benefits of each. But so we know 560 to 800 is the visible red light. And then we have a little bit over 800 rather is near infrared light. And then over 1,000 is far infrared light, but that might not be even red light.
No,
Anyway, you explain that.
yeah, I'm gonna shift that. So the visible red light it's 620 to 750 is
Okay.
that's the visible red light. And then 760 starts the near infrared. And that goes up to near infrared goes up to 1,300 nanometers. So when
Okay.
when people see numbers attached to light frequencies, I basically explain it to them as is the higher the number, the deeper the depth of penetration into the body. So the 600s, those 600 nanometer wavelengths, those are very surface layer, they don't penetrate as deeply. They're very important, but they don't penetrate as deeply. When you move further into the near infrared, so 760 up to 1,300, those penetrate very deeply, and sort of there's a lot of talk about, okay, what wavelength is good for X, Y, or Z. I think we're going to sort of figure out all wavelengths are serve a purpose, and there's so much overlap. I mean, sunlight has all of the frequencies. That's the ultimate in light. So, basically sort of picking and choosing, oh, should I use 630 or should I use 660 or I like blending as many wavelengths as possible. I feel like the more wavelengths you can use, that's where you're going to get more benefit. So, when people often will email me about the torch and say, should I use it on this setting? Should I only be using the red wavelengths for this? And then should I use the near infrared wavelengths for this? Yeah, I mean, research does target certain wavelengths, but my intuitive feeling about it and in understanding light is use all the wavelengths you have available to you, you know?
Yes, that's beautiful
Uh,
because, like you just said, sunlight, it's the gold standard. It's the Chanel of light, whatever you want to say. It's the best, and that should always be our priority, to get that natural light. And we have this full spectrum there, and together it does beautiful things inside of our body. So my understanding too, like with benefits, like those, like the visible red, like they say, those are more, I don't know, like the beauty benefits. And
right.
then as you go deeper, you're gonna have like those, pain relieving effects and those other things where it gets really, really deep into the layers of our skin. So can you describe the basic mechanisms of red light therapy? So basically in the mitochondria, I know that the near infrared, increases the activity of cytochrome C oxidase. And I know that there's also research that says it might be the water in the cell that's accepting this. So, I mean, maybe it's both, but can you just explain that part for people in the electron
So
transfer chain?
the mitochondria have chromophores, which are light, acceptors and absorbers, and they absorb, different frequencies of red light. And I love Carrie Bennett when she says, the human body is a battery made of water charged by light. Yes, that's exactly what it is. And within this world, space, we talk a lot about exclusion zone water, and that being the battery that actually, powers the human body. And through Gerald Pollack's work, he was able to actually sort of target and figure out that it was being exposed, the water being exposed to near infrared light is what expanded that exclusion zone and built the battery. Basically it's building a robust energy system within the body, and the body understands exactly what to do with it. It's the most efficient, cleanest form of energy that the body could possibly receive. It just knows exactly what to do with it with 100% efficiency. So, it's unlike food, where you have to choose the food and make sure that it's a healthy food and a nutrient dense food, and you have to ingest the food, and then you have to hope that you're absorbing that food, and then that food gets converted into energy. With light, it's instant, it's efficient, and it's the power source that the body understands.
Yeah, yeah, Mother Nature makes no mistakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're helping people with, like when you're a coach or whatnot, and you're helping people who might be on, let's say, medications or whatever, having them do a light protocol is only going to make things better. I love that part. Like it's a very non-invasive, and you're right. Our body knows exactly what to do with it when it gets it.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you
now
hear the thunder and lightning
I
here?
just saw the lightning. Love it. I'm in the Pacific Northwest and we don't have lightning here.
Ah,
But the other day
well,
we
I
did see lightning. It was weird. What was it? We were like,
yeah.
oh, that's in 4 years. It was the first time we've ever seen lightning here. I don't know what's
This
going
this
on.
is quite the storm this afternoon. All right.
Well, okay, so red light therapy is seems to be getting, like, people know about it. It's getting more mainstream. I know that I think you said on a podcast there's over 600 studies. You want to talk a little bit about just the research and the validity of what we're talking about today, so people have an
Yeah.
understanding.
So there's a Google Doc that I often send to, doctors that reach out to me, or trainers, or people just wanting, show me the study, show me the study. And this Google Doc, initially it contains 6,000 published PubMed studies. Now I think it's upwards of 7,000+
Okay.
studies. Being here in Massachusetts, there's amazing things happening here as far as photobiomodulation. I mean, Harvard is studying it. Mass General has an entire department dedicated to studying photobiomodulation. There's a doctor there, Paolo Cassano. He is a photoreceptor. Like, this guy understands that light affects the brain more positively and more effectively than any pharmaceutical that they have ever developed. Like, it's mind-blowing, and it's exciting to be in the world of photobiomodulation. Also in downtown Boston, there is the Wellman Center for Photobiomodulation, which is, MIT researchers, many Harvard researchers as well. It's absolutely phenomenal what is happening in this world. And it seems as though, they sort of start researching something, and they gather some information, and then that prompts, well, let's look at it for this, and let's look at it for that. And with light, it seems like everything that they start to look at pans out, and it's showing efficacy for pretty much everything because of the mitochondria. It's good for everything, and it sounds like a panacea. My husband jokes that I treat red light like red hot, like, oh, you put that stuff on everything. And it's true, and it does sound like a panacea, but we're talking about healing and the body responding at the cellular level. And it doesn't matter, race, socioeconomics, gender, none of it. It's, we're talking about the human cell. And so, the studies are they're unbelievable. It's showing efficacy across the board, and everything that they study, they're really just finding it to be beneficial with no side effects. There's no downside. There's no contraindication to using it. There's no limiting factor that would prevent someone from using light. And they're finding it to be as effective, if not more so, than most of the medications that are available. So basically, Michael Hamblin, the world leading researcher in photobiomodulation, he said himself, when someone asked him, well, why isn't this discussed in every doctor's office. And he said, if you go into a doctor's office and they tell you here's this thing that you can buy, that you can do at home, that you can treat yourself, and you won't ever need to come back to me for more service and more medication. He said himself, there's possibly a reason that it isn't discussed in doctors' offices. So, that requires people like us, curious people and people that are seeking alternative therapies and people that are seeking health to find these modalities and utilize them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So before I want to get into your panels, but before we do that, one last question. Okay. So I know you've also said if we're not spending 6 to 8 hours outside, then basically you would want to utilize red light therapy or some kind of a device, right? So could you explain to people what the biphasic dose response is?
The biphasic dose response, it's interesting because I look at light from a slightly different lens. And even James Carroll, who is the CEO and founder of Thor, who makes the Thor, photobiomodulation bed, they make world-class medical grade lasers. And, this guy has studied light for nearly his entire lifetime. And even he says, we don't know. We don't know. So, I think that we can use the biphasic dose response as a model, but as a clinician using light with my patients, I'm finding everything is an N of 1. And every patient is responding in a different way. And it all depends on what is your light deficiency. What is your overall, health? How much energy are you losing? And then you have to figure you need to put in that amount of energy. And that's why photobiomodulation is so phenomenal for athletes, because the amount of energy that they have to expend through training and practicing and playing and all of that, it's nearly impossible for them to add back through food, add back the amount of energy that they need to recover. So light is an amazing modality for people like that, but not just for them. I mean, it's for everyone. I find a lot of the elderly patients that I work with do really, really well because they're losing energy. You need to put energy into their system. An injury is losing energy, so you need to put more energy into that area. Sickness, you're losing energy. So I pay attention to the biphasic dose response, but I've seen people, overstep and have amazing results. So everything is an N of 1. And I think going forward, and also with that biphasic dose response, the thing is, in photobiomodulation, in the research, they've never collectively agreed upon the way to measure the amount of light that's being used. So it's honestly, it's a pretty open area right now that they can be saying one thing today, and then we can find out a couple of years from now something very different. So even within the world of photobiomodulation, there is not an agreement on dosage. James Carroll, like I said, he said himself, we don't know. We know that we're not harming people. We know that. We know that people are responding favorably, whether they're getting a little bit of light or whether they're getting a lot of light, they're responding favorably. So, hopefully we're gonna figure this out probably over the next decade and have, everything more dialed in as far as that's concerned. But I've seen light do amazing things, and I've sort of overstepped in using light, on myself for certain things, and been very sort of pleasantly amused, like, wow, that was Interesting.
That's awesome. Yes, we are all, everyone's going to have a different, like just life experience, different mitochondria from, their mother. And depending on, there are so many variables to take into consideration that we have to look at it as n=1. Because we're all so unique. And you also spoke to, I feel like this is, we're in this paradigm shift of from looking at things in such this chemical way to
Mhm.
more of an energy. Now, you just mentioned like losing energy. Well, processed food, it's positive charge. Regular filtered water, it's positively charged. Where I think Kordakoff is the researcher, but he says 50% of our body's energy just like every day just goes to changing everything that we put into it from a positive to a negative. And we wonder why we're chronically fatigued. And there are things that we can do to make sure the food that we eat is nourishing and that it's not positively charged. There's things we can do to our water to make sure that that is negatively charged, so it actually gives us energy than taking it away. And our just the artificial lights and all that, like that's more spend our energy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing the researcher. His name escapes me at the moment, but he said that blue light discharges the membrane. Red light recharges the membrane. And I was like,
Oh, that's good.
that is just amazing. It's the researcher. Oh gosh, what is his name? I can see his face, and I've listened to him a number of times. He's the researcher that just did publish the study on red light therapy exposure and lowering your blood glucose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the researcher, but if you think of it, you can shout it out.
It'll come to me at 2 in the morning. I'm gonna sit
Yes.
up and be like,
Yeah, no pressure.
yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in to Soleil Well and what prompted the company. I know your background, your story is wonderful how this came to be. I'd love you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, so I was working for a really, great biological medical dental facility, having studied light because of my brother and for my own family. I was bringing light into the center. So I was sourcing from, seeing which company we were going to source the lights from for our patients. And honestly, I'm sure it's like any industry. When you peek behind the curtain, you all of a sudden say, whoa, wait a second, there are some issues here. And I discovered, some issues. And thankfully, honestly, I feel like it was meant to be, because within my own house, I have like built in this amazing, team that has supported this. My husband is a golf shoe designer. He understands Chinese manufacturing very, very well. He's dealt with it for almost over 30 years, nearly 35 years. So I had his insight into just general manufacturing in China,
Okay.
which was such valuable information that I would not have had. So he was the one that was saying to me like, whoa, wait a second, these are just being made in China and just shipped to everyone. And I said, well, some of the companies that I had spoken to, they said, well, we pay a quality control engineer at the factory. And my husband said, that quality control engineer works for the manufacturer, doesn't work for the person, that has contracted them.
Hmm.
So that immediately, it was like a hard stop, like, wait a second, hold on here. Light is as powerful as a medication. These are medical grade devices that are eliciting a very powerful biological response.
Hmm.
First and foremost, they need to be safe.
Yeah.
That was my personal feeling on it. I was like, wait a second. Okay, I can't expose my brother to anything unless I know that it's safe. I don't want to expose myself or my family. So that's what sort of started it. And Corey Gasvini is just such a doll. He really he was the guy that was like, do this, you need to do this, do this, do this. And so I did, and it took a while. It took a couple of years for me to kind of figure this out and understand Chinese manufacturing, which I wish I didn't have to rely on. Jackie Jolie is she's going to be the trailblazer in changing that for some of us. So hopefully we'll be able to do more U.S. manufacturing. That's the goal. That's our ultimate goal.
Mm.
So that, like, it was scary. It was like what am I doing? And so I kept it pretty quiet. I worked with my family, with my friends, with my local patients, and just very quietly did this. And then I was getting emails from people who had friends, all over the country, and other practitioners saying, can I get your panels? I want your panels in my practice, and I want your panels for my patients. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm really doing this, like, not just for me here. Now I'm really doing this. And it's always a challenge. Every single order that comes to me, I test everything, because every single time I find something I always find something. So, I just always imagine, like, anything that's being drop shipped from China, the manufacturer's job is to get it out the door for the least amount of money in the fastest way possible. These companies that are manufacturing that they don't have an actual quality control system here in the States in place. That's alarming to me. And your mitochondria, which is what these lights, affect so favorably, your mitochondria are environment sensors. They are the ultimate environment sensor. So if you're exposing your body to something that potentially has flicker that you're not going to be able to recognize, or something that has a high magnetic field or high electric field, you're not going to know this. It's not, you'll have no idea, but your mitochondria will. And it's not safe. It wasn't something that I was willing to gamble with for myself, for my patients. And now there are enough people that are saying, like, oh, okay, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I'm not interested in gambling with that either. So it's been fun. It's hectic. It's crazy. Never a dull moment.
Now, I just want to say something to clarify for people what they just heard. So normally, when you purchase these big panels, it's going from where it was made to them, but it was maybe through a company.
Right.
And you are having every single panel shipped to your home. You're testing each panel. So you are the quality control.
It's me.
It's you.
Yes, it's me.
This is
Nothing gets
exactly
past me.
this is exactly why I tell people, just Kelly's panel's the best. That's just the one you need. This is awesome. So
Thank
let's
you.
talk about your products for a second. Tell people what you offer. And I know Jackie, you just mentioned Jackie Jolie. She was actually on the podcast and was sporting your blue blockers. So, and I know those are a more new product, right? Yeah. Share a
Yes.
little bit about, you adding things on and the other
Yeah.
things that you offer.
So again, I sort of quietly did some glasses because of my local patients. I was encountering some, not resistance. My patients wanted the glasses, but it was difficult to suggest some people. It was a hard investment, basically. Not everyone can afford $400 blue blockers.
Right.
And so, I was like, this is so important. People need to be able to have good glasses at a price point that fits into anyone's budget. And so, so I started doing that as well, and testing the lenses. And, I had shipped some down to Corey and said, can you test these? Like, tell me what you think. And Corey said, those are the best glasses I've ever tested. He was like, of all the glasses I've tested, those are the best I've ever tested. And I was like, great. All right, let's do this. So essentially it came out of my patient's need and, me wanting to be able to provide them, a great lens. I will say, and I've said this to other people and everyone's like, they're great. They're great. The frame, where I had to cut back on to keep the cost where it's at was I sacrificed a bit of the quality in the frame, although everyone reports to me like, no, you didn't. I love the frame.
Mm.
And basically put the cost into having a great lens and making sure that lens performs and blocks the frequencies that it's supposed to. So yeah, so I did that. And again, I've done that for a while. I didn't have them on the site. I just was doing it locally. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just put those on the site too. So I did that.
Awesome. And then talk about a little bit about the torch. That's the device I have, and I think it's just so handy.
This thing is, I don't leave the house without it. I have one on my nightstand. I have one in my bag. I have one in my car. My kids have them. Each of them have them on their nightstand. I love this because I can see my own kids whenever there's anything going to light as the solution, as the treatment, as the answer. And I would love for every household to start thinking in that way, So, I mean, this thing is, it's mind blowing what it's done for people. It's easy to use. It's inexpensive. The wavelengths are fantastic. Everyone is responding. I mean, I get emails every single day, like these big long emails, and oh my gosh, I had plantar fasciitis and for 2 years I was suffering and the torch has changed my life. And just like across the board, it's just such a great tool, and if someone can't, this is, red light therapy is expensive. And if someone can't afford something like a panel, this is a perfect sort of, not a gateway drug, but it's a perfect introduction. And, it's certainly cost effective to get into the hands of most people, for them to have access to good, excellent wavelengths, really powerful red light. And I love that it's direct contact. That's the magic. It's direct. You can use this directly on the skin. I use it on my gut. I use it, I have people that use it on the thyroid, orally. I mean, we're going to do a dental podcast intraorally. I have never had a tool in dentistry that across the board worked for pretty much everything I tried it on, and worked better than any of the modalities, any of the treatment options that dentistry had to offer. So, it's just, it's so exciting to constantly be getting these emails from people saying, oh, I used it for this and I used it for that. And, I used it on my dog and I used it on my hip and so, and I just recently,
red light.
It's the gateway, right? Well, it's funny because a trainer that trains a professional hockey player. So here's just a little story. A professional hockey player was using this, loved it so much that he bought it for the entire team. Every player on the team, he bought this for. So yeah, so I just kept saying, well, if that team goes to the Stanley Cup, I'm going, because I feel like I personally contributed. So, but I recently just did, this little add-on lens. This is what I was sort of working on over the past couple months. And this just allows the torch to really glide over the tissue so much nicer. And I was thinking, like from a, if you want to use this as a beauty tool, there's I think it's called the Lumi or something laser. It's like over $2,000. And I was like, I'll just use my torch all over my face. And then I'll use it on my thyroid if I need to, or I'll use it on my foot if I need to. It's such a versatile, portable tool I'm obsessed with it. Everyone else is obsessed with it. It has an absolute cult following. And one of the hockey player trainers, we joked one day in a conversation. He's like, basically the catchphrase is just going to be just torch it. It doesn't matter what it is, just torch it.
Just torch it.
Torch it.
Okay, so because you just mentioned, so you mentioned the competition and also wavelengths. So I want to touch on both of those things. So I know that Laura had recommended to a client of hers to get a torch. Well, then the
Yeah.
client came back to her and was like, "Oh, I found this other thing that's cheaper." So they bought the cheaper thing.
Yeah.
Can you talk, a little bit about why, and this might lead into the wavelengths, because I do want you to talk about how you pick those and what the panels have and what the torch has. And then also like how, well, yeah, you go from there. What are the benefits of yours and why yours? Besides, of course, the quality control and that you're testing them.
I mean, that's huge because it's tested. I can tell you, if I turn this computer around, you would die at the amount of boxes. It's like there are boxes like stacked. I had gotten a shipment of hundreds of torches. They got delivered. I immediately open the box and I immediately start my testing. And the first one tested terribly. And I was like, wow, okay, that's weird. On to the next. And then the next, and it was just torch after torch after torch, was complete trash. It looked exactly like this.
Right.
If you turn the light on, it looked exactly like this. So
How would you know?
anyone to the naked eye would be like, well, it's exactly the same. It was far, far from it. It had massive flicker. I mean, it was a train wreck from start to finish. There was a major manufacturing issue. And no one would have known. No one would have known. That's why testing is so important. There was also, I saw an interview. There's a guy that does a lot of red light panel testing. And he got a company had sent him a product, a torch, and this is our new thing. And the guy that's doing the testing takes it out and he's like, yeah, this is great, this is a great company. And
Wait, it was yours or someone else's?
It was not mine. No,
Not
I
yours.
don't
Okay.
send my torches to anyone. No, because a lot of those people, you pay them and then they talk about your product. So I just don't engage in any of that. So anyway, so he's on camera. He starts testing the product that was sent to him, and it didn't have anywhere near the wavelengths that were listed. And he's testing this, and it's all captured on camera. And he's like, oh, okay, oh, well, that it's supposed to have this wavelength, and oh, wow, that's interesting. And that to me was like, this is exactly the problem. That company that sent that torch to be tested on camera didn't even have the wherewithal to make sure that was
yeah, they
correct.
never tested it, obviously.
They don't test anything. They don't test anything. So, my own experience with my manufacturers, which, I like them. They make a good quality product, but that's not always. Sometimes things are rushed and sometimes things are missed. And there are always issues in any manufacturing, no matter what it is. And no matter where it's done, it doesn't, there are certainly issues with US manufacturing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, the point is, no matter what you're purchasing, you need to really do your research in understanding what is the level of quality control.
Yeah. Now, you just mentioned flicker, and some people listening might be like, well, what the heck is that? So can you tell people what that is and why it's good that your device doesn't have it?
Yeah. Flicker is a stressor.
Yep.
Your eye can't see it because it's happening too fast, but it's a brain scramble. It's a complete brain scramble. And anyone with any sort of a brain injury, or everyone is affected negatively by flicker, but certainly there are vulnerable people that are really negatively affected by flicker. So, it can set off seizures and migraines and just, oh, honestly, even just a feeling of being unwell can happen from being exposed to flicker. So in nature, the only time sunlight does not flicker, the only time we would have been exposed to flicker biologically would be if we were running through the woods and the light was, through the trees was flickering. So
Sure.
it's a massive stressor to the system, even though it's invisible to you, but your body is paying attention, your brain is paying attention, and your mitochondria are paying attention, and it has a very negative effect.
Yeah, yeah. And for
Yeah.
people listening, if you want to test something for flicker, you can play it on your phone in slow-mo. I think it's 30 seconds. And then you play it back to yourself and you'll be able to see the flicker in a light bulb or whatever your light you're testing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps our sympathetic nervous system on. Like
Yeah.
I help people in addiction recover from addiction, and their sympathetic is already on enough. Like they don't need, anything
Yeah.
extra. So this is why it's so important that we're talking about this stuff to this community specifically. So before we go away from I wanted to ask you about non-native EMFs. I know that you're big on that. Talk about what that is and relation to your products.
Yeah, I think people that we use the term EMFs, right? Oh, you're exposed to EMFs. I like to call it what it is, radiation. You're exposed to radiation. And that has like a jarring effect when and people look at you like, well, what do you mean I'm exposed to radiation? So, it's you certainly want to limit your exposure to excessive, non-native. Now, granted, radiation from the sun, that is native radiation. That is something that our body understands. These, artificial, non-native radiation is very, very damaging to the cell. So, you want to limit and minimize and eliminate your exposure to that as much as you possibly can. So, that was another, big issue. I was like, okay, they have to be safe. And so I had Shane Riley, the building biologist from Optimal Dwelling Spaces. So Shane came out, he stayed here, he stayed at my house for 5 days. It was great to see him and great to spend time with him. And he had panels like unscrewed and opened up and testing in different configurations, and and Shane has my panel. So, obviously it's safe,
Yeah.
safe and effective and powerful. So that was hugely important to me. And it's always an ongoing process of getting that to as little as humanly possible, which it's hard to do with something that's plugged into the wall, but that's a constant quest of let's always make that better and make that less and less and less and less. So it's a constant target that we're always just trying to do the best that we can. My son graduated with his degree in bioengineering, and so I mean he's my favorite science guy. Him and we have so much fun. I have so much fun with him. I mean, and my husband is a world-class designer. He holds 30 patents for designing golf shoes. Like I can think of something and he can just sit at the computer and he can design anything. And then I have my son that just speaks this language of science and mitochondria and how a product relates to human biology and how do you develop that. Him and I were here the other day and we had mirrors, and so we were like bouncing light and we were testing and just like having a blast. He's so curious and so bright, and it's fun. It's fun being in this house with like these two, super geniuses
Yeah.
that I get to live with.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's so awesome. Okay, so before I ask you some questions that are, yeah, the wavelengths. You have
Yeah.
certain
And
wavelengths.
And I just want to add, my younger son does all the shipping. So, that's he's the muscle behind a lot of it. So I don't want to leave him out of it. So this is a full-on family affair over
So
here.
small family business here we're supporting.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love supporting small. Now, when you were picking the wavelengths, I know one of your panels has a certain amount of wavelengths and the
Yep.
other, and there's a benefit for putting them both together because
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. When I'm ready to buy the panels, I want them both. I want the stand, and then I'll like just like the setup you have. That's
Yeah.
what I plan on having. And then your torch also has a certain wavelength. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the torch, I had some conversations with some really smart people about wavelengths and was directed in a way to, go deeper into the research of Tina Carew and
Mm,
the action spectra of light and its effect on human biology. And so that's what the 5 wavelengths of the torch is based on that, as well as the custom panel is also based on that. So,
okay.
and I mean, it's magic, honestly. It's absolute magic. But with the torch, I was able to put 5 wavelengths into the torch. So I did add in the 810 nanometer wavelength because the brain just responds so beautifully to 810 nanometer light. And I have a Vilight, so I have the red light therapy headset with the intranasal little clip. And Vilight's been around for quite a while, and they have done amazing research in wavelengths and brain health. They're very instrumental in what's going on at Mass General, also at Spalding Rehabilitation. So, Vilight did a lot of the research on the 810 nanometer for the brain. And so I just sort of piggybacked on that and said, I definitely want to have 810 nanometer light in the torch so that with this, intranasal attachment, you can just, shine this up your nose and you're getting that 810 nanometer light, which is really just an amazing wavelength to use. So, wavelengths matter.
And that's a more efficient way to get it to the brain,
Yeah, so
basically.
there's a plexus within the nose, deeper in, that just absorbs light, and a lot of blood flow there. So you're able to actually irradiate, a lot of the blood flow and increase blood flow to the brain. So wow, it's amazing. I
I
mean, I've
haven't
had a
used
lot
it
of
in that
people.
way yet.
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of people say, "Wow, that's like a cup of coffee for the brain. Like that just feels really good." The brain loves red light, and cerebral spinal fluid it's called a light guider. So, sunlight on the head, or, directing red light on the head, the cerebral spinal fluid will actually grab that light and drive it and bring it, drive it deeper into the brain. It's the way the system works.
Yeah.
It's designed to grab that light and bring it into the deeper tissues.
Awesome. Oh, I can't wait to use my torch now.
Yeah.
And I love that also that it shuts off. I remember the first time I ever used it, it was actually on my husband. He was experiencing some pain, and I was like, "Well, we just got the torch. Let's use it." And I remember putting a timer on my phone, and I didn't need to do that.
Right.
It
Yeah.
just it
No,
shuts
I
off when
mean,
it's supposed to
honestly,
shut off. It's like perfect. So
it's the
perfect.
easiest thing. Right. Yeah. I mean, you just you can pop it in your nose, press the button, and it shuts off after 3 minutes. You're done. Walk away. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's so easy to use.
All right. So we went over what makes your products so special. I'm glad we got to cover that in detail. In that, I just think that was all just so wonderful. Now, can you share us some testimonials, clinical testimonials of how red light therapy has helped, whether it's chronic or acute, and also prevention if it's what you've seen with that?
Yeah. I mean, I believe it has the capacity to prevent disease. Certainly. Sunlight has the capacity to do that as well. So, if you're in an area where you are not able to get a reasonable amount of sunlight daily, certainly adding in near infrared light is just, it's going to really benefit your health from a wellness standpoint, but also I believe from an absolute preventive standpoint. The torch, I mean, I had a patient that had a blocked parotid gland, and her face was swollen up, basically like her cheek went down all the way down to her neck. It was huge. They tried everything, nothing worked. This went on and on and on. She got a torch, she started using the torch, and she was like, okay, that worked when nothing else worked. It's over and over and over again. My brother had, a multitude of things happening with him that we were able to and the best hospitals in the world. I mean, we're in Boston. He had access to the best hospitals in the world, and they could tell us nothing. They just basically said, it's a brain injury. We don't know. There's so many unknowns. We don't know why this is happening. We don't know what to do about it. We don't even know what it means. And when we started treating him with strong light, my brother has this set up. He has 4 panels. When we started treating him with strong light, a lot of things went away. They just went away. A lot of his sleep improved. Red light is absolutely phenomenal at increasing the amount of intracellular melatonin. That should be everyone's goal. That should be everyone's goal. What do I need to do to get more, to produce more melatonin? Because ultimately that, from a preventive standpoint, preventing disease, melatonin is what you want. So, preventing breast cancer, you have to, your breasts are supposed to be exposed to near infrared light and UV light. So, using red light, I just feel across the board for me, myself, I mean, I do a lot of, over the years, there have been lifestyle modifications, which then just become your way of living. Adding red light has been just a phenomenal addition to this lifestyle. And just across the board, over and over and over, everyone, I get emails all the time of people that have just done so well. I had an 81-year-old patient that she had multiple neck surgeries and back surgeries, and medicine just kept wanting to carve into her. And she said to me, she's so funny. She said, I don't have much time left, Kelly. I don't have much time left. And I need to get back to golf. And I said, okay, all right. And so she got a panel, and I worked with her very closely on how I wanted her to use it. And ultimately we were trying to dial in, like, what would be what is the right dose for her? Like, what is the minimally effective dose? And we got it like really dialed in for her, and she got back to golf. And she was thrilled when nothing else was working for her. None of the physical therapies, none of the medications, anti-inflammatories that were offered to her, nothing was providing her relief and getting her back to function the way that she wanted to. And she was so thrilled, and I was just so happy for her. And that's the story, and that's definitely the driver. And what makes this so fun is that you just over and over and over have people say, like, wow, I feel so much better. So
yeah. Well, and you mentioned being in the nude at the beginning, and most of it, like a lot of us, we can't be out in the sun where there's 42% of this light that we need all day long for free. We can't
right.
go out there naked. So actually having a panel where you're in your house and you can be, will allow for those areas that we always have covered, which are
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
breasts and our nether regions. They're always covered up. So they're not getting that, at least not a direct exposure. I believe it
Right.
penetrates through the clothes, but
It does.
yeah.
And that's the thing about near infrared light, that I love explaining this to people, because like, we know that, okay, the red spectrum is 42% of sunlight that hits the earth is in the red spectrum, but it goes beyond that. So near infrared is available every minute of sunlight has near infrared in abundance. So that would indicate to me that, okay, nature decided that near infrared is really important because
Yeah.
every minute it contains near infrared. Okay. But then through Scott Zimmerman's work and what he is saying about near infrared is that when the visible, when light hits the earth, the ground and the grass and the leaves and all of the vegetation and everything around us absorbs the visible spectrum and then reflects the near infrared. So
Mhm.
we're actually getting absorbing far more than just that 42%. We're absorbing, 80 to 90% of the light that is being reflected onto us is near infrared light. And it also penetrates through clothing. So again, it's like nature decided this is really important and we're gonna make this in abundance every minute of every day. And not only that, but it's going to penetrate through, whatever you decide to cover your body with, except for windows. So I'm always like, wow. To me, there's a huge conversation about vitamin D and UV light, and I will never discount that conversation whatsoever. That is vitally important information. I feel like the conversation about light near infrared is the king because nature decided that and put it there always.
Yeah, light is a nutrient, and that is a huge a huge piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned the intercellular melatonin, and I actually wanted to talk to you about this because in the addiction space, so exogenous melatonin will often be prescribed. And also, I just want to be clear, I'm not making medical advice nor stepping out of my scope. I'm making some observations here, and they take exogenous melatonin. We know based on the research, it really does help somebody with opiate use disorder get their circadian rhythm back on track, hence why it's prescribed. And we know based on the research, it's not as effective for alcohol use disorder. And, being that red light therapy is so beneficial, what would you say for somebody who might need to titrate off the melatonin? Because we definitely don't want to take exogenous melatonin forever. It can be an
Right.
aid into you get your circadian rhythm online. So besides, of course, the light environment piece and the sunrise in the eyes. Yeah.
So blue light destroys melatonin. So even if you're taking the supplement and then you're still watching television or scrolling or under LED lighting, you're not getting a net benefit from doing that. Melatonin is a hormone. It's a hormone. It's a powerful hormone that you should never take something exogenously that your body is designed to make endogenously. So the goal with melatonin, yes, use it in a crisis. Absolutely. I wouldn't argue that whatsoever. But the goal should always be to, what do you need to do to get your system to produce as much of it as your body needs? And I mean, near infrared light that's the key. Like that is the number one focus in order to be able to do that
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah, I think I've heard Jack say, like, if you make it, don't take it.
Yeah.
That little
Yeah.
rhyme stuck with me.
Yeah. And also you could also go into the Thor website. They have a huge catalog of studies, and in the UK they are using red light therapy to treat addiction very, very successfully.
Oh,
And
I
they
need
have
to look into that because I was going to ask you that question. I think I skipped it on accident. I didn't mean to skip it.
they have the studies there on the Thor website. They have the studies there that they're using it very, very effectively for that.
Oh, that's such good news. Oh my
Yep.
goodness.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe let's end here with some practical tips on how someone would incorporate red light therapy into their daily routine. For instance, I actually had someone purchase a panel and they came to me and they're like, this is actually making me tired. And so I started asking them some questions, and I come to find they were using it during dark hours. When they started to
Okay.
use it during the appropriate times, it went away like that. So yeah, what would be your tips for people?
I definitely think that we are going to find there's a major circadian component to red light therapy. I always use it when the body would be expecting it.
Yeah.
Always, because I mean, some of that has been figured out in the red light therapy for improving eyesight study, where they did the exact same treatment on the exact same people, and when they did it at different times, when they did it early in the morning, it had an amazing effect, and it improved visual acuity in the participants. And then when they did it later in the day, it didn't have the same effect. So I will always follow nature, and I do my red light therapy. I really don't do much in the summer because I get 12 hours of sunlight a day in the summer. I mean, I'm out there all day. So I
Yeah.
don't feel the need, I don't feel drawn to it. I don't feel that I need it.
I'm the same
You know,
way.
yeah, but I can already tell the light is already starting to go away, and we're in mid-August, so the light is already starting to go away. So I'm already like, okay, I'm gonna start getting back into my, lower light environment routine. I always get morning sunlight. I always get the natural frequencies from sunlight, always get that, AM sunlight for about 30 minutes grounded. And then I come in and then I do my red light therapy. I do it before the UVA shows up. So UVA typically shows up, an hour or so
Yeah.
after the sunrise. So priority is always natural light. Then I come in, I do red light therapy before the UVA shows up. Then I will go out and get more of that UVA rise, go for a walk, take the dog for a walk, things like that. So I do have some patients that have struggled with sleep, and in those circumstances I think doing red light therapy, but only using the near infrared, which is it's the more powerful light. It's the deeper penetrating light. It's the wavelengths that stimulate that melatonin production, but it doesn't have the brightness. So using red light therapy, they're very intense. It's very intense light. And that can be what will keep someone awake at night. That can be
Yeah.
very stimulating. So for certain patients, I have, some elderly patients that had trouble with sleeping, I have said, you can use the panel later. I wouldn't do anything past probably 8 or 9 p.m. But I always say, like, you can use it later, but only on the near infrared setting. So it's
Okay.
not super bright, it's not
Yeah.
overly stimulating, it's just very calming, it's very soothing, and it promotes that production of melatonin. And that's only on a as needed basis. That's not like a standard, like, oh, everyone should do red light therapy at night. That's very specific. Or
Yeah.
if you've traveled and you get into the hotel, or you get home from a trip or whatever, and you want to be able to sleep, then I'm okay with using. I would rather use red light therapy to produce that melatonin than take a melatonin supplement.
Okay. Yeah. Beautiful. I want to ask you our signature question. What does quantum healthy mean to you?
To me means generational health. I mean, that's my ultimate goal, is to raise my kids healthy, to age healthy, to raise my kids to be healthy so they can go forward and raise a healthy family. And I feel like that's all the goal of everyone, right? We want to learn this, then we want to share this with everyone so that we can start creating a society going forward that has robust health, because we haven't had that in a very long time, and we need to get back to that. And this quantum health movement is what's going to do that, and what is going to create generational health moving forward.
That's such a fitting answer from the quantum mom, everyone. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so lastly, share any offerings you have, what you might have coming next, or where people can find you. Of course, we'll link all these things in the show notes for people.
Yeah, so Soleil Well has, its own Instagram, and the website is soleilwell.com. The website, I'm the least tech person. I actually have a physical response to having to be on technology. I'm always like, ugh. But so the website is it's very minimal. I keep it very minimal. So, but the products are there, and that's where people, I needed a landing place where people could see them, get a little bit of information. I am adding more information to it, certainly. So, that's going to expand. I mean, as far as products, my son and I were playing around with some stuff the other day. He has an idea for a product that I think is going to be pretty stellar. So,
Awesome.
that
How exciting.
we're going to do some R&D for that. We already, we had a conversation with a pretty sort of influential, recognizable, fairly famous person about it. And he immediately was like, yes, I want it, make it because I want it. So it was like, whoa, okay. So, it's like where everything is always just evolving. I'm always trying to make the panels better, make the existing panels better, safer. What more can I do with what I currently have? And then, just make some other cool stuff too. But the goal, the torch just continues to evolve, and okay, what else can I do with the torch? So I have a lot of fun with that.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I know we're going to have you back for a dental episode. I cannot wait for that because I've been doing
I'm
all
gonna
the
blow
things.
up dentistry. I'm gonna blow up dentistry. I have big issues with dentistry.
I'm so excited. I've been incorporating some of the things that I've learned just from listening to you on other podcasts, and yeah, and my teeth are good. So far, so good. Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you everyone for listening. I'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakissmannwellness.com and Andeea at andeearay.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.